Emerald Nightmare has been a lie this entire time. It has nothing to do with the old gods whatsoever, as we just learned from the brand new Haranir questline. The Rift of Aln was created by the Titans as they messed around, just like how they ripped out Y'Shaarj and created the entire Pandaria mess. When they ripped out Azeroth from her cradle, they created this mind-altering realm that could never heal. Now, the old gods did play a part in that much later down the line, as they started putting fuel to the fire, but the true creation of the nightmare is something entirely different. If the nightmare is Azeroth's bad dream, then what really is the Emerald Dream, and who is Aln'hara, the goddess that we've just learned about? Overkill offers the best coaching service, and it can save you time. So Overkill just skipped the ad for you, and it can help you skip a lot of trial and error with their coaching service. So check out my code Dorons10 to get 10% of every order until the end of the year. So the Emerald Nightmare has been severely retconned, and I know you can say it's not really a retcon, and it's kind of not in the full sense, as if they just came out and said, yeah, the Emerald Dream has changed in the Emerald Nightmare, that would be a full retcon, but this is like entirely new context that pretty much changes everything we had previously known about this Nightmare realm and all the old god lore. Like, there is a pretty significant difference. So by the lore so far that we've known about, the established lore, the Nightmare was essentially the old god corruption of the Emerald Dream. The Dream was always mysterious, it was never really explained even up to this day, but the Nightmare was pretty well established. It wasn't really a mystery. Like some 4.5 thousand years ago, a small group of druids took 6 branches of Nordrassil and planted them across Azeroth, planting one of them on Serenite, which was the blood of Yogg-Saron in Northrend. This one, in Grizzly Hills, the World Tree Andrassil grew into the prison of Yogg-Saron, and it started wreaking havoc across the entire zone. This was the entry point, and then the old gods combined, spread seeds of corruption through the Dreamways, corrupted it all over the place, and created the anomaly known as the Emerald Nightmare. Well, throw all that out of the way, while technically it's not a lie, the new story is drastically different. Remember the Rift of Aln, which was essentially the center where the druids believed the dream itself originated? Well, this is all related to the Haranir and the World Soul. The old gods came in much later down the line, and while they have infiltrated the Nightmare, that part can't really be denied, they just kinda used it for their own purpose. They didn't create this realm. The new lore comes from the Harandar campaign, and we've learned a whole lot of new lore. First of all, we have probably the biggest lore bomb we've gotten the past decade, and I feel like this kind of completely slipped under the radar. I really feel like the community should be talking about this way more. I mean, we literally learned Azeroth's real name, sort of what she was, what really happened back in the day. I mean, this is kind of bigger than Chronicle was originally. You can check out a full video I have on this, but Azeroth used to be called Aln'hara. Now, we don't know if that is what she calls herself, but the Haranir are said to be her children. They called her that. They were essentially the closest ones to the World Soul. The goddess was called Aln'hara, and she lived in Harandar in the so-called cradle, which is now this giant rift that we can see today. I'm not sure how we got from Aln'hara to Azeroth, but it's pretty clear that this is the World Soul, and we don't know what she looked like, whether she really was a nascent humanoid goddess or if this was just like a bundle of energy. But this cradle, as we've learned, is connected to all the world trees across Azeroth, and it's like this giant network below the ground that the Haranir still use to go across the planet, but it can also, as you can see, be used by sinister forces such as the old gods. So it is implied with the lore that when the Titans came to order Azeroth, they found Harandar, the so-called cradle, and they physically ripped her out of this place and very likely placed her in Khaz'gar in that chamber that we've also learned about in the War Within. So Amantul is just like this dude that really likes ripping things out with his hands, like Y'Shaarj, the World Tree, and now Azeroth herself. However, much like how when she ripped Y'Shaarj that created a whole Pandaria mess, you can imagine ripping out the actual World Soul is going to start causing even bigger problems. It's likely we've learned that this had far worse consequences than we had ever known, but one of these consequences is the creation of the Rift of Aln that we've just learned about. No speculation here, I mean, we got the official questline and the storyline for it. The gist of it is that Aln'hara, or Azeroth, really was sleeping, and when the goddess was torn from her cradle, a violence was left in this place, wounds that could never heal. An incredibly dangerous realm known as the Rift of Aln. It is said that her screams from when she was ripped out created formless terrors that still exist and that drive those who enter mad. This is essentially the nature of the Emerald Nightmare. Now, in this questline, we actually visit this realm, of course. The haranir tells us that Aln'hara can be found there, but it is incredibly dangerous, as they tell us it is dangerous beyond measure. They're constantly warning that no one should go there without knowing the true risk, as this is no regular place. And of course, we visit it and we find that this place is full of various world soul memories. So this Rift of Aln really is the nightmare, but the nightmare of Azeroth herself, like a bad dream that was left in the place where she was ripped out. You can imagine that this new implication is actually huge for the lore. I mean, it could imply that the Emerald Dream is much more than we think it is, and we'll probably learn about that too. I mean, the entire BS Chronicle Titan lore was that the Titans had created a pocket dimension, like a backup realm of nature that they can source from, but then the Dragonflight books told us that this was a lie as well, that the dream is much more ancient, something we don't even know about. Based on the fact that this nightmare containing Azeroth's memories is a nightmare, I don't think it is a far reach to say that the dream is essentially her dream, like Azeroth's true vision of Azeroth without any problems, like this nature utopia. However, let's focus on the nightmare for now with this new lore. So it hasn't exactly been retconned that the old gods hit apart in this entire thing. I mean, a huge part of the multiple expansions was us figuring out this nightmare and seeing old god minions all over the place, and they were just kind of everywhere. The entire Il'gynoth's whispers, Il'gynoth himself, his whispers are still iconic and relevant to this day, came from this place. So the old gods really did corrupt the Emerald Nightmare, but the initial lore was that they created this pocket dimension some 4,000 years ago is kind of a complete lie. I mean, based on this new lore from the haranir, this creation of the Rift of Aln happened right around when the Titans had defeated the Black Empire. The timelines are a bit vague still, but this happened much before that. The Rift of Aln has been active for a very long time. However, as we have figured out right now from the haranir and the world trees that are connected and everything, and the roots are much more than roots, it's like this magical underground network of Azeroth connected to the Emerald Dream, and like this entire just like infrastructure below. So the druids really did plant the branches on top of Serenite. I mean, we saw that world tree that was destroyed, and they did give imprisoned Yogg-Saron access to this vast underground network. However, the big difference is that they literally just infiltrated this already maddening realm and started pumping out their old god stuff in there. They didn't really create anything out of thin air. They have expanded this realm, but the Rift of Aln was the center of the Emerald Nightmare, and it had nothing to do with the old gods. The true creators of the Emerald Nightmare are really the Titans, of course, unintentionally, but you can kind of figure out that they did a whole lot of things unintentionally. I mean, they made the whole Pandaria mess by brute forcing Y'Shaarj out of the ground. They created a Well of Eternity by wounding Azeroth. They experimented on old gods, created Gahun. They messed around with Yogg-Saron and created Galakrond. And now they also made the Emerald Nightmare, as well as that entire rift in Khazakar. So the Titans unintentionally goofed around quite a bit. Now, this doesn't necessarily retcon that the old gods hit apart in the Emerald Nightmare. I mean, they can just write out the fact that we've seen old god stuff here, but all they really did was just corrupt this structure that we've defeated. But now we are discovering the true source of the nightmare in haranir, and you can see the same mind-altering effects exist. While this is just the start of the new lore, I think that big things will be revealed, like who really was Aln'hara, what did she look like. We'll probably figure out what the Emerald Dream is as well, and how to stop the Emerald Nightmare, aka the Rift of Aln, from being like this violent whirlwind just kinda stuck in time. Somehow I feel like this will be resolved soon. I think a lot more things are going on behind the scenes that we don't know about, like the connection of the world trees to the Shadowlands. I think the Shadowlands are very likely also one of these things that the Titans implemented. And Sylvanas obviously hinted at this in the new questline. I mean, you know that Ardenweald is connected to the Emerald Dream somehow, so it's likely that the Titans had infiltrated and had their hands in that entire thing. It just kinda connected like Azeroth's material plane and the Shadowlands. Without a doubt, this really is that worldwide conspiracy that you may remember Chris Metzen talked about when he announced the World Soul Saga. A whole lot of things are going on behind the scenes. The Shadowlands, the Nightmare, the Dream, and things are really not as they seem, and hopefully soon we will figure out what is even going on. Thanks for watching. Check out the Return of the Thanos and why he's even alive by clicking on the screen, and check out my video on Titan lore and Greek mythology that I've recorded live on site in Italy by clicking on the screen as well. See you next time!